You're watching Global Toronto. This is Global News at Noon.
Well, the temperatures have taken, of course, another plunge. During last month's deep freeze, many people were seeking shelter, and unfortunately, many of those people were left out in the cold. And this morning, protesters were at City Hall demanding more spaces. That's where we find our Mark Carcassol here this afternoon for us. Mark, good afternoon. What's the latest there?
Good afternoon, Jeff. There was a couple dozen protesters organized by OCAP, the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, here at City Hall late this morning. They're calling on City Council and the Mayor to do something about what they say is a homeless crisis in this city, one that they worry could amount to 8 deaths a month if action isn't taken. The message brought to City Hall is written in black and white.
We know that from the beginning of the year, last year, to September, 70 people had died on the streets. We know we've confirmed 2 deaths in the beginning of January that we know of for sure.
They say the temporary respite centers opened by the city this year aren't enough. They want 1,500 new permanent shelter beds by year's end. They say the cities less fortunate can no longer afford to be turned away from shelters due to lack of space.
It's been brutal. It's brutal.
A quiet picket outside turned into a noisy rally inside City Hall.
Hey, John Tory, add more beds or you'll be sorry.
Moving through the lobby and upstairs.
Hey, John Tory.
Steps away from where the mayor was addressing the public during a news conference in his office.
When it comes to finding land, finding buildings, doing the renovations and so on, it isn't a matter of doing that in a number of weeks. They're anxious, as I am, to replace temporary facilities that are clearly stopgap measures with something much more suitable and more permanent and better. And it takes a little bit of time to do that. So we're moving quickly. We're making substantial additional investments.
So the money is there, and we're saying free it up. We're not going to let you leave people to die on the streets, and we're not going to let you cram people into hellholes.
OCAP says it's tired of waiting. This isn't a new request. They want action.
The city is scrambling, continues to scrambling, refuses to respond to advocates. So we're saying, listen, we know we have a problem. We know it takes time to build shelter, but you haven't been.
In addition to more shelter space, the group also wants City Hall to improve shelter conditions. They say poor conditions lead to mental health and crime issues and cause those who need them most to shy away. The city says currently its shelter occupancy rate is 95%, far from ideal, say advocates. They say that the ideal level is about 90%. That gives everyone who needs the space, the necessary space to get in and out of a shelter when and if they need it. Jeff, back to you.
All right, Mark Carcassol at City Hall for us. Mark, thanks.
This is City Hall. Earlier this morning, the executive committee is meeting, and advocates for the homeless want shelters and affordable housing on the agenda. Our Colin DeMello is live now with more on who the protesters are and what exactly they want. Colin.
Well, they're with the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, Michelle, and they've been pretty vocal about wanting more shelter spaces in the city of Toronto. We are, of course, coming off of a very brutal few winter weeks, going into another one today, in fact, and they've been advocating for more shelter spaces because they've been saying it has been a dire at-capacity situation in many shelters in the city of Toronto. There's no more space. They want 1,000 shelter spaces added in Toronto in 2018. However, the mayor says that they are going to be adding 1,000 shelter spaces over the next few years, which is why those protesters were here today. They were very vocal. They tried to get into the executive committee meeting at one point. We were inside. You could hear them. They were banging on the windows at one point, but it didn't really disrupt the executive committee meeting, and in fact, security guards held them outside.
And anti-poverty protesters blocked from getting into the executive committee today while they were demanding that the mayor add shelter beds for the city's homeless. Yesterday, the city's budget committee voted to add 361 new beds, but the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty says that's a fraction of what's needed to tackle overcrowding.